Hey, good morning, everyone. Josh is Severe Weather, and happy Thursday, the 18th to you. We're going to be chatting about our next storm system, which could bring some of the heaviest snow of the winter to parts of the mid-Atlantic and Northeast here in the coming days. It doesn't look like a lot on the map, but I'm going to talk to you guys about what I think it could be an overachiever of a storm. We'll also chat about the cold that's to follow it once again here. Another wave of nasty cold coming this weekend, followed by a big warm up next week. So let's take a look at the map here. And this is the area I believe our snow totals are probably going to come in higher than maybe what you would expect and what some of the official forecasts show. And I'm going to talk about why that is. But very cold air coming behind this system. It's clipping very quickly across the northern part of the country, tracking from the northwest this morning into the northern plains tonight, and then linking up with some more lift that's going to be in place here near the coast of New Jersey, and that's going to allow some heavier amounts of snow to fall here tomorrow, especially for the first half of the day. So we're going to talk about that here. The current map has quite a few hazards on the map here from the National Weather Service. We have winter weather advisories stretching from the northwest right on down through the lower Great Lakes, the lower Midwest, including parts of the mid-south from Arkansas over into western North Carolina, and then right on up to near the Mason-Dixon line and just north of it, including much of Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Winter storm warnings in effect for a good chunk of West Virginia here, and that does include Charleston this time. Also, winter storm warnings for Northwest Indiana and far Southwest Michigan, and northern, north central, and northeastern parts of the Ohio coastline with Lake Erie into Northwest PA, and winter storm warnings as well across parts of Montana, Wyoming, northern Colorado, Utah, and the interior of the Pac Northwest. Here's a look at our next storm system, and it's moving pretty quickly here in two pieces. You can see the circulation over Montana. That is going to dive east-southeastward today. I'm actually going to show you the predicted track. So here's that upper level feature here, and it's going to be diving and tracking very quickly here. We also have a southern piece of the jet stream, which is bringing energy into Florida, keeping South Florida from getting cold. But a piece of this jet is actually going to ride up to the north and east. So you've got kind of two competing features here, and the two are going to try to consolidate by the time they move into the mid-Atlantic area here tomorrow morning. So we're going to see some enhancement in the snowfall rates, especially in the higher elevations. But I think we're going to see an area as well that forms here that we have to keep a close eye on here in the parts of the Philly area over New Jersey, and maybe New York City and Long Island as well, for some enhanced rates of snowfall. Once that moves through, we've got another push of cold coming for the weekend, and then we're going to see a big dramatic warm up coming next week. Our January thaw coming for about 7 to 9 days as we get beyond that point. So I'm going to have less to talk about next week when it comes to winter weather, but I'm okay with that. We all need kind of a break. So here's a look at this temperature forecast. You can see the cold buried across the central and eastern United States for the next 7 days here. But as we trend towards next week, we see that cold getting wiped out, and much of next week is going to be well above average, especially across the northern tier of the country. And that is honestly pretty common for a pretty decent El Nino to see here in the middle of winter. Now, as we get past the end of the month of January and into February, that is going to reverse right back to a colder weather pattern. And we're going to see significantly colder temperatures beginning around the turn of the month here into February. And the latest GFS ensemble control here, and that's just one model, but it's been sticking to its guns here, shows significantly colder weather coming in a couple of waves. The first one coming for the first week of the month of February. Then we see it get reloaded, and this looks kind of like a repeat of what we've just dealt with here, right around Valentine's Day, give or take, maybe into President's Day, but sometime during the middle of the month of February, we see another outbreak of major cold. All of these can get your hopes up for some winter weather in parts of the southeast and mid-Atlantic states, but there is no guarantee. You can have cold air without moisture. You can also have moisture without cold air. We obviously want to see both if we want to see a winter storm, but certainly we've got more chances for winter weather that could last us well through February and even into the month of March here across portions of the Carolinas and mid-Atlantic region. Here's a look at our temperature forecast, or actually current temperatures first, then we'll talk about the forecast. And you can see still an icy grip on much of the northern parts of the country. The southeast, very cold this morning. The northeast is cold as well. But we're up to 20 degrees in Chicago, so much warmer than it was here over the weekend when we had sub-zero temperatures in place. There's still a big supply of cold air, but it has relaxed some. Now, there will be a push of this cold back into the eastern part of the United States as we get into the weekend. while the west is going to warm up. And you can see that warm up has already started, significantly warmer this morning than this time yesterday across the south central states into the Ohio Valley. In some cases, more than 20 degrees above where it was this time yesterday morning. You also see there is another wave of cold coming, and temperatures have dropped about 20 degrees in a day in parts of Montana, British Columbia, as well as northern Ontario. So there's still another wave of cold coming before we finally warm things up. Here's a look at today's high temperatures. And you can see still pretty warm down south, much warmer in Louisiana. We were struggling to get past freezing on Tuesday. Now we're into the 60s today. And then tonight will be a chilly night for many. But as we head towards tomorrow, a wave of colder air following our Clipper system, and St. Louis, Kansas City will struggle to get much above 10 degrees during the day. So it is going to be a lot colder tomorrow, and that cold is going to advance south and east. It's not going to get to Florida yet. We're still in the 70s and 80s in many places. As we head to tomorrow night, though, starting to turn colder again along the Gulf Coast, back into the 20s in Dallas. We are going to be in the lower to mid 20s here in the Western Carolinas, and sub-zero temperatures down into northern Illinois and into northern Maine. Take a look at Saturday. It doesn't look like much, but this will actually be the coldest day of the year for us in the Carolinas and Southeast Virginia, as Raleigh and Charlotte struggle to get past the freezing mark, even colder than yesterday. And even Florida cools off quite a bit. 49 in Jacksonville, 57 in Miami, Miami, Tampa. I know the difference. 55 in Orlando. Even Miami, though, is cooler, 72. I hope that they're okay down there with that. But we definitely have a colder night coming here into the 30s along the I-4 corridor here for Saturday night. So this will be our coldest part of this next wave of cold, with well below zero readings all the way down into East Tennessee, into northern New England, and into the upper Midwest. But temperatures are going to start to rebound on Sunday. We'll be closer to average for this time of the year. Still chilly, though, across the Southeast, especially Florida with respect to average. And then here's a look at the end of the weekend as we continue to have a chilly night in place. But here comes the warm up next week, and we're back to average, if not a little above average by Monday. Here's a look at next Tuesday, mid to upper 70s in Florida, upper 60s in Texas and Louisiana, upper 50s in Raleigh, mid 50s in Charlotte, and well into the 40s. So a lot of this snow is going to be melting here in the mid-Atlantic states starting on Monday and Tuesday of next week. And here's a look at our projected highs on Wednesday. And most of us are going to be above average, as temperatures are going to be above the freezing mark pretty much everywhere except northern New England and across the Rocky Mountains. So it's going to feel more like March than it will January by the time we get to the second half of next week. All right, let's talk about our Clipper system and what to expect from it here. This is the NAM model. This depicts the motion here at 500 millibars, which is well above the ground, as you can imagine, 20, 30,000 feet up, somewhere in there. And you see our main Clipper, our main piece of energy this afternoon, dropping down through the Missouri River Valley into Iowa and Illinois. There's kind of two pieces to it. Here's the polar vortex, or a good chunk of it anyway, moving into the north central states overnight tonight. As we get to tomorrow, pretty good energy diving south and east here. This favors a significant amount of lift here in the mid-Atlantic region. That is going to be driving our snowfall rates tomorrow, and then that's going to move away tomorrow evening, and it will be replaced with a stretch piece of the polar vortex. You see this big ridge building back in. It's going to turn unsettled again here for California and into the western U.S. as we get to the end of the weekend and next week. And then a more progressive flow, which allows the cold to remove itself from the country and allows a return to more moist, wetter weather and milder weather as we get later into the weekend and next week. And I suspect we'll be looking at maybe some potential for more heavy rain and severe weather as we head into later next week. So we're flipping back to where we were here, although albeit less extreme than what we saw, say, last week. So that's a mouthful, but at least want you guys to be aware of what's to come here. This is the NAM model, taking a look at the mid-Atlantic region, and we see this Clipper moving through here tomorrow, and then some enhancement coming. There's kind of a piece of energy here at about 18,000 feet up. That's going to, just south of it, allow for some enhancement in the rates of snow. There's some disagreement on where this happens, but generally speaking, we're talking around the Philadelphia area, central and south Jersey, northern Delaware, northeastern Maryland, but that could still shift a little north or a little bit south. So if you're in DC, Baltimore, Dover, Delaware, this by no means says that you're not going to get hit potentially harder than expected, but that could also shift back up towards the I-78 corridor, Allentown over to New York City, maybe the Lincoln Tunnel as well. So we're going to keep an eye on this little piece of energy. It's definitely going to be enhanced here tomorrow afternoon. And what it's going to do is allow our clipper to kind of hang on as the energy transfers to the coast. We still have this lifting mechanism right along the Mason-Dixon line for snow to fall into the afternoon. So that extends the amount of time our snow is falling, and that can up the rate of how much snow falls. So we certainly, I think, are going to have an overachiever. It's just exactly where exactly that band sets up, and it may be a pretty narrow band of very heavy snow. It's still a bit up for grabs. That energy pushes off the coast, and we see quieter weather for the weekend. Here's the HER model, high resolution rapid refresh. You see the cloud cover rolling in here today. Not a lot will happen. Then here's our main system moving in here around midnight tonight. And as we get into tomorrow morning, what you'll notice here, especially earlier in the day, is that we have some brighter cloud tops in place here in the Philadelphia metro area early in the day tomorrow. This indicates where precipitation may fall more heavily. And this is just one model taking a stab at it. But notice the Philly region here definitely has enhanced rates of precipitation. That also tries to happen up here in the 5 boroughs early in the day tomorrow. So a very snowy morning expected. And it's going to take us until later in the morning to get this piece of energy to leave the region here. Here's a look at the NAM model nationwide, just showing you a large view of what's happening. Here's our clipper diving down into the upper Midwest here this afternoon. We also see this southern piece of energy overrunning it with a little bit of frozen precip here in Arkansas, Tennessee, and some light snow breaking out in the Midwest. Again, in southern Illinois and Indiana, southwest Ohio, western Kentucky, we are going to get skipped over with our significant amounts of snow. I know you want to see it in Indianapolis on south. This unfortunately has trended in the direction where the energy doesn't combine until it moves past you here tomorrow, later tonight into tomorrow morning. But we do see snow rates do pick up here across Ohio into northern West Virginia, northwest Virginia, and across the rest of the mid-Atlantic region here early in the day tomorrow. And here you see that significant area of snow continues, and it sustains itself until tomorrow evening. So darker blues here around parts of the Northeast. I don't think we're talking about much mixing except maybe along the immediate Jersey shore down to the Delaware shore. This is primarily snow now, as we have cooling coming from aloft on down that would keep this from trying to mix over to frozen or liquid precipitation. It should move out of the way here tomorrow night. We're going to have lake effect bands moving in here, and those are going to continue into Saturday. Then our next storm takes aim at Northern California. Here's a look at the NAM model for the mid-Atlantic region. This is a closer view of kind of what I just showed you here. Some light overrunning snow here today into tonight over parts of upstate New York, western PA, and central Ohio, as well as northern and eastern Kentucky. Initially, we could see some light rain falling here along the I-64 corridor this evening before we see that switching over to snow, which could be pretty substantial overnight tonight. As we get to tomorrow morning, we do see enhancement in the rates of snow falling here over eastern PA, northern Delaware, far northeastern Maryland, and much of the state of New Jersey here tomorrow. This is lunchtime, and it will be snowing in some cases kind of heavily. I don't think we're going to see lightning out of this, but we will have some heavy snow that I think is going to overachieve across this region. And it continues into the afternoon. This is 4 o'clock tomorrow, and then we get to about 7 o'clock tomorrow, and the NAM model says we still have enough lift here for some light snow across southern New England, moderate snow around New York City, and potentially some heavy snow over South Jersey, northeastern or northern parts of Delaware, and maybe still the Philadelphia area before things are going to taper off here tomorrow evening and move away here late tomorrow night. But, you know, some funny things have happened here on the smaller scale, and I don't know if this particular run of the NAM is going to be correct. I've seen it be off by 20, 30, 40 miles, but the fact that it indicates that there's kind of an inverted trough in here, you see how these lines kind of kink back, makes me think that some places here are going to get a bit of a surprise. The forecast may be 3 to 5 inches, but somebody may get an 8-inch snowfall out of this. So I'm going to do my best to just get you guys prepared for what could happen. And you may be stuck inside for more of Saturday than you'd like to be, depending on how much snow can fall tomorrow. We also have a bit of ocean effect snow moving from north to south over Cape Cod and hitting the islands here later tomorrow night. So despite the fact, I'm going to learn to talk here, despite the fact that the ocean has been warm and it's hurt those of us from seeing substantial snow along the Northeast coast, it may actually work in our favor here with some Bay effect snow here and Cape effect snow coming here later tomorrow night into the early part of Saturday. But other than that, pretty quiet weather here. Looking at the rest of the mid-Atlantic region. Most of this is going to be moving pretty quickly through eastern Tennessee into northwestern North Carolina. We will see a little bit of light rain tomorrow morning from Richmond on south through Raleigh all the way down to about Myrtle Beach. Not a big deal at this point. That's going to move away and it will be dry in the afternoon. And then you see these dashed blue lines getting chased south and east. This is the cold air arriving from our polar vortex, and it's going to bring us our coldest night of the season Friday night here across the mid-Atlantic. Meanwhile, Tennessee's already had its coldest night. Kentucky definitely had its coldest night. There was a spot in Kentucky yesterday that had the lower 48's coldest temperature, which almost never happens outside of the northern tier or the west, especially Peters Sink, Utah. So very interesting setup here. The HER model I'm going to show you as well. It's also a high resolution model. You can see it's got a little more enhancement across northern and eastern Kentucky tonight. So a little bit more favorable shot of some significant parts of snow or amounts of snow. And it also keeps things from mixing with rain here across the I-64 corridor of West Virginia. Keeps it all snow here tonight. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. But as we get into tomorrow, you can see it is not as frisky with the amounts of snow as the NAM here around the Philly area, but it does have this pretty much falling all as snow except right along the immediate Jersey shore here tomorrow morning. And then that switches over to snow in the afternoon tomorrow in New Jersey. And you can still see it snowing here in the early evening hours. This is 6 o'clock tomorrow night, still snowing around Philly and maybe snowing moderately here on the eastern shore of Maryland over into northern central Delaware and into South Jersey, winding down though around dark around New York City and completely finished here by evening hours across the Northeast. So definitely some challenges here in the forecast still. We have a great idea of the timing of everything, but who ends up getting rocked with more snow here is still up for grabs. I just think that somebody's going to get a surprise here and get an overachieving snow. Here's a look at the Midwest today or the Great Lakes region. We see light to moderate snow tonight here falling, moving through the Indianapolis area overnight tonight, then winding down by morning. And all we're left with is a band of intense lake effect snow that could be somewhere between Gary and South Bend, maybe just west of South Bend here during the morning tomorrow. And that band does shift and oscillate east and west. So there's definitely some high-end snow potential here in South Bend and up into the southwestern portion of Michigan. And that continues tomorrow night before breaking up as we get to Saturday morning. Farther up across lower Michigan here, we are going to see light snow this morning. And then another wave moving in tonight from west to east. Not a big deal for you, except near the Lake Michigan shoreline here. And that the western shore of Michigan continues to get hit here tomorrow night. And then things are going to quiet down on Saturday morning. Also off of Lake Huron, significant snow. And I apologize, in Ontario, the Pivotal Weather site doesn't give you an outline, but it'll be coming down pretty good here as well off the Georgian Bay and off of Lake Huron. Looking at northern Ohio this morning, just a light snow. We'll see some light snow as well along the I-70 corridor this morning, and then winding down this afternoon, then picking back up this evening. Moderate snow falling throughout the night tonight, winding down tomorrow afternoon. A little bit of snow still possible tomorrow evening. At this point, primarily flurries, but we're definitely going to see enhancement along the Lake Erie lakeshore, even around Toledo and Sandusky as we get through tomorrow afternoon, evening, and then just some light snow in Northeast Ohio by early Saturday. Kentucky, this is going to be very interesting for you as well. We're going to see one piece moving through this morning of light snow around Louisville, even into the Lexington area, but it may start as some rain. We also see some freezing rain here across western and middle Tennessee, right up into southwestern Kentucky this morning. It's not going to last too long here, generally less than a 1/10 inch of ice, but enough to cause problems because remember, the ground is very cold coming out of this last snowstorm. Unlike the last system, we've got that cold air in place here where whatever falls on contact is going to freeze instantly. So that's definitely something we're going to watch. It'll head into northeast Tennessee here tonight, even into western parts of North Carolina. Asheville, though, I don't think sees much of it, primarily in the higher elevations. And then tomorrow morning, as the cold air follows it, we just see some snow showers here, winding down around 8 or 9 in the morning across northern Kentucky. But taking us into the early afternoon across western North Carolina and in the Smokies region. All right, looking at the Carolinas and Virginia here, we are going to see light overrunning precipitation this evening, and then that picks up here overnight tonight in parts of northern parts of Virginia, especially west of D.C. towards places like Gainesville, Bull Run, Harrisonburg, down to Roanoke. We do see some light snow falling. Light rain across the Richmond area on south and eastward tomorrow morning, but that exits quickly. Then the colder, drier air moves in. So this will shut off pretty quickly especially south of Richmond and south of the northern neck of Virginia, and just dry and cold weather with some upglide snows falling here in the mountains of West Virginia. I was reading that Snowshoe has over 50 inches of snow this winter, so very quickly we've made up for our deficit. Davis, West Virginia has over 80 inches of snow, and we may see another 8 to 10 falling here. Let's take a look at Maryland and surrounding states here. We are going to see light rain moving in overnight, changing over to snow by morning around Baltimore, some mixing challenges around DC, but then primarily snow tomorrow morning. I think that's when things are going to be at their worst, late morning into the lunchtime hour. And then we may still have some light snow falling until about early evening here tomorrow in Maryland and Delaware before things move away. Looking at Pennsylvania, I don't think you're going to have any mixing challenges this time. We're talking all snow. The bigger question is where the heavier rates of snow fall. And I think Southwest PA here overnight tonight, then Southeast PA tomorrow morning, but maybe even South Central PA, including the capital region of Harrisburg and Lancaster here tomorrow, especially morning, but even into the early afternoon, could have a nasty ride here on the turnpike. That should exit here, stage right here tomorrow night. And then we'll just have some lake effect snow showers across Northwest PA. And those could make it all the way down here to 322, all the way down to Selinsgrove and maybe even Hazleton here by lunchtime on Saturday. Looking at New York State, we have lake effect battering area, the south towns of Buffalo, battering areas just south of Watertown. That's going to oscillate back and forth here. We're going to have lake effect falling, and we're going to also have warm advection light snow falling here with our next piece of energy. Very interesting setup, but everybody gets snow here by tomorrow morning across southern and central New York. Northern New York and the northern tier here kind of miss out. It's a little too dry for that. But take a look at New York City here tomorrow evening. We're still dealing with some significant snow around 6 o'clock before things exit over to the right. I am going to take a look at southern New England and Long Island, giving you guys a little bit better view here in New Jersey. A little bit of snow upstate here later this afternoon into Connecticut, then a break. And then we're going to see more substantial snow moving in time for the morning rush tomorrow. There'll be some mixing with rain from Long Branch down to Wildwood here tomorrow morning. Ben, I think that goes over to snow. Even Long Island's probably going to see this going over to primarily to snow as our inverted trough brings in colder air aloft with it. But tomorrow afternoon, we definitely have potential here for some overachieving amounts of snow around 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon across this entire region. So it's going to be coming down really hard and then winding down here in the evening. Snow totals here real quick. This is the European model. This is the Canadian model, which is backed off some. This is the GFS. And then we see higher rates from our mesoscale models, 3 to 6 inches here around Philly and central Jersey. This is the high resolution FV3 model. This is the German Icon model. And here's the NAM model, which honestly, I think is going to end up being close to correct here. But again, you just see a 4.5 inch here. It doesn't necessarily mean we can't see more or less. But certainly we've got our biggest snow in a while here around Southeast PA into New Jersey, if this is right. And maybe New York City, 2.7 inches showing up here in Central Park on the NAM model. So we'll have to see if that ends up being right. This is the higher resolution NAM as well. And a blend of the models. Actually, looks like the winner here. If we take the average of everything, we see 4.5 in Allentown, 4.1 in Somerset, New Jersey, 3.8 in New York City, 4.1 here on the island, and even an inch falling in the Boston area. Here's a look real quick at southern New England, and not a big snow for you in Boston. New York City, couple of inches, maybe 3 to 4, maybe 5 or 6. Look at Wilmington here on the NAM. Look at Bridgewater, New Jersey on the blend. So taking a look at the blend of everything, we definitely could do pretty well in New York City, but it's going to be a fine line between not a lot of snow and people that say, oh, that's more than I expected. And that line very well could be right over New York City and across Long Island. Looking back into Kentucky and Tennessee, here's all of our models. I'm not going to spend much more time on this. You guys can hit the pause button and take a look at it. But here's our blend. And other than Eastern Kentucky and the mountains here, which see 3 to 6, not going to be a big deal when it comes to snowfall totals. Athens, Ohio, Huntington, West Virginia over to Charleston, though, could do a little bit better than that. Here's a look at our ice potential as well. Not a lot, generally speaking, a tenth or less. The HER says a little bit more. I think this is going to be overdone here, unfortunately. This model is going to get its butt kicked. Here's a blend of the models, typically speaking, less than a tenth of an inch of ice, but keep an eye on things in Western North Carolina, in the higher elevations around Murphy, over to Blairsville, Georgia, and then right on up the spine here towards Avery County and to near Boone and Blowing Rock as well. Looking at snow in Pennsylvania here, European model here, GFS in pretty good agreement. The HER in decent agreement, although higher around Philly. The German icon, here's the NAM 32 kilometer. Here's the NAM 3 kilometer, 5 inches in Wilmington. So there is certainly some upside to this potential amount of snow. And then the blend shows 2 to 3 around Wilmington, 3 to 4 around Philly, 4 to 6 in the Lehigh Valley, even back to State College and over to Hazleton. But again, I certainly believe somebody in this area is going to see more. And I'm not really going to know that until we get to about lunchtime tomorrow. And I will be posting on my community page once I have a better handle on that. I can't outguess what's happening until I see it happening. That's the limitation of the human being here, but I will do my very best. And here's a look at a couple of other models for comparison. They all look a little bit different, as you can imagine. Here's Ohio, European model. Cleveland on Northeast. Ashtabula should get some pretty good snow out of this. Not so much in Southwest Ohio around Cincinnati. GFS, her model says Cincy doesn't get that much. Here's the German icon, the NAM, and the high resolution NAM showing a heavier band that makes it all the way down here through Mansfield over to about Wheeling, West Virginia. Even Parkersburg could do pretty well, but the mountains obviously are going to do better. Here's a blend of the models. Typically speaking, they really show some impressive amounts falling in northeastern Ohio, moderate amounts on the I-70 corridor, light amounts down towards Cincinnati and areas south and west. Here's a look at Maryland. I know I've been jumping around a little bit on you. And generally speaking, Northeast Maryland could do pretty well, but some mixing could cause challenges around the DMV area and on south and east towards the Chesapeake. Southeastern Maryland, Eastern Shore, going to get very little out of this. Just a little bit too warm and a little too dry for there to be much here. Although the UK Met's interesting looking here across the lower Potomac region. So keep an eye on that. But that's kind of an outlier here. So here's what the blend shows. Let me find it for you guys. Here's the blend. And again, probably wrong, but averaging everything you just saw. And other than Western Maryland, we're typically looking at 1 to 3 inches with higher potential here in Northeast Maryland, Delaware, and in South Jersey. Finally, in the Northwest, we've had crippling ice in some places here around Springfield and Portland. Unfortunately, more of that this morning and continuing into the afternoon before we see warmer air moving in tonight. Then we see a break and much more seasonable weather this weekend. But if you have friends in the Pacific Northwest, you may want to go check on them. Substantial ice falling here. The cold air just doesn't want to leave the valley here. That milder Pacific air comes on top of it. Whatever falls melts and then refreezes as it gets closer to the ground. Just a very nasty setup coming. Here's your accumulating freezing rain. The Cascades are going to see maybe up to a ½ inch or more of ice. But as we get over to the Portland area, about 1/3 of an inch, and you get over to the Columbia Gorge, about 1/2 inch, and interior Eastern Oregon and Washington, over 1/4 inch of ice possible. So I apologize if I went long today. I just want everybody to see what's happening. I want to do my best as a meteorologist to get you guys prepared. But you know what? You guys mean the world to me, and I really do thank you for your time today. Feel free to leave me a comment or a question. I'm going to be super busy this week, but I will try to respond. Just be patient with me. And of course, if you're a first time or second time returning guest here, please consider becoming a subscriber and sharing with your friends here as I do my best to pour out what I know about the weather with you guys. I give all the glory to God. I thank him every day for another day. Every day I wake up is a blessing. I really hope that you believe that as well. But if you don't, I don't judge you for it. But this is my calling. God has called us all to do something here. In my case, it's to share the weather with you, but also to share the good news with you. And that's Colossians 3, 15 through 17. And let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to the which also ye are called in one body. And be ye thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord. And whatsoever ye do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God and the Father by him. For 30 years of my life, I was not very appreciative. I was very entitled. I had darkness. I did not have joy. I had times where I was happy, times where I was appreciative of the people around me, but I didn't give any of the glory to God. But thank goodness that changed. And I was able to see what was going on, going through some difficult trials and difficult times in my life where I was very dark. But people around me introduced me to a different lifestyle, and I saw the joy in them. And eventually I made the choice. They didn't, but I made the choice to follow Christ and become a Christian. And because of that, I feel like I've been truly blessed, not just for what's going on here today in my life, but what I believe will be happening eternally for me. And that is the ability to one day be with Jesus in heaven. God has done so much for us. We have the choice to acknowledge that. It can be a two-way relationship that can change things for you. So I want to pray for you no matter what you are going through today. I truly believe in the power of prayer. I pray over everybody on this channel, whether or not you're a believer. That doesn't matter to me. I'm going to treat you all the same way. But please know that this is my calling, and that's to share the good news with you and to lift you up and encourage you. And I hope that you can see that today. So I will catch up with you all again tomorrow morning, but please be safe out there and have a great day. See you on Friday.